Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to call this hearing of the Emerging Threats and Capabilities Subcommittee of the House Armed Services Committee to order. I'm pleased to welcome everyone here today for this hearing on fiscal year 2017 budget request for science and technology programs within the Department of Defense. In a recent speech, Secretary of Defense Ash Carter spoke about the return of great power competition and the need to deter our most advanced competitors. We can only deter these competitors and adversaries when the Department of Defense harnesses innovation and creates new capabilities for the military that will maintain and expand our technical superiority now and into the future to achieve peace through strength. The budget request is a good step in tackling the modernization challenges of the department. Activities like the Third Offset Strategy and the Long-Range Research and Development Plan are important to charting a course that takes a strategic view of the security environment. However, I remain concerned that it is too little, too late. As I see it, starting major initiatives at the end of an administration makes it difficult to ensure that these programs will survive the new budgetary and policy priorities that will naturally arise with the new president. I hope I am wrong, since I support many of the things being proposed in this budget request, but only time will tell. I would like to welcome our distinguished panel of witnesses and appreciate their perspectives on all of these issues. This panel includes Mr. Stephen Welby, Assistant Secretary of Defense for Research and Engineering; Ms. Mary Miller, Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Army for Research and Technology; Rear Admiral Matt Winter, U.S. Navy Chief of Naval Research; Dr. David Walker, Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Air Force for Science, Technology, and Engineering; and Dr. Arthi Prabhakar, the Director of Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. I'd like now to turn to my friend and ranking member, Mr. Jim Langevin of Rhode Island, for any comments he'd like to make. And Dr. Prabhakar, thank you very much. And I also want to thank you so much for the opportunity ahead to visit your facilities, to visit your personnel. It really is reassuring, and I hope that other members of the subcommittee will take advantage of the open invitation you have 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to come visit. And but it really is inspiring, the personnel that you've assembled. As we now begin the very strict 5 minutes, beginning with me, Mr. Welby, could you explain the Third Offset Strategy? How are science and technology investments being aligned to support that strategy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As we've discussed in I think every statement here today, we find ourselves increasingly challenged by near-peer competitors who are investing in high-end capabilities, in ballistic missiles, in advanced cruise missile technology, in advanced electronic warfare, and other capabilities that directly challenge U.S. systems. We recognize that as we look to the future, it's going to be increasingly difficult to compete with those capabilities in an investment for investment, dollar for dollar, system for system basis. We need to be thinking harder about how we shift the shape of competition, the playing field on which our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines will be fighting, into areas where we can ensure that the United States has an enduring, dominant technical capability. The Deputy Secretary regularly talks about the first and second offset strategy, looking back to competition with the Soviet Union and in the 50s how tactical nuclear weapons were deployed to counter the numerical superiority of that threat, and how in the 70s and 80s the Department developed precision weapons, ISR, low observability, novel use of space, network-centric capabilities, the toolkit that we've fought with since to remarkable success. Today we now see others around the world building capabilities directly designed to blunt those U.S. advantages. We now see others having those capabilities which were once purely the domain of the United States. And as that symmetry begins to develop between ourselves and potential competitors, we want to ensure that we have asymmetric advantage that we can deploy in the future. This whole discussion about offset strategy is about finding those technology offsets, how they map into operational capabilities, how we can invest in those capabilities that will begin to move the ball in a way that will shape a longstanding advantage for U.S. capabilities. And we believe those capabilities will arise from the emerging technical innovations that were discussed here today in areas like thinking about new long-range systems and exploiting manned-unmanned machine teaming in new ways and leveraging autonomy to build things like cognitive warfare systems, counter-electronic warfare systems, and thinking about spectral agility and many of the things that we're working on in our laboratories, but moving them much faster into tactical application and arranging those into strategic concepts that will allow our forces to shape future battlefields. The topics that were mentioned earlier, things like the Long-Range Research and Development Planning Program, an activity that I led for the previous 18 months, provided a set of potential options for the future of the department, new material systems that might offer significant advantage in the future. That report, while the report itself remains classified, is reflected in the support and decisions that were made in shaping the 17 budget submission and informed by a number of other studies and areas and the ongoing war gaming activities that are going on across the department. And so the third officer strategy is not a thing, if you will. It's an ambition to think differently about how a department will fight in the future, how the services will align technology, organization, and capabilities to provide that enduring advantage. But it's underpinned in a very significant way by our critical technology investments we're making here across the services.
Well, as a very grateful dad of 4 sons serving in the military, I appreciate you thinking ahead on how to protect our service members and protect the American people. And Dr. Prabhakar, could you describe some of the efforts DARPA has initiated to combat the ability of groups like Daesh to spread violent extremist propaganda and radicalize users online?
Mr. Chairman, you've touched on something that is increasingly becoming integral to any kind of conflict around the world. Obviously, I think we're all aware of the use of social media by ISIS, ISIL. It's also very integral to hybrid warfare that we see that the Russians engaging in. So I think it's a vital, important area today. DARPA has had programs over the last several years that bring data analytics and tools to end users so that they can start to wrestle with this vast array of bits that are flying at them, whether it's military information or open online information. And building on those, today we're developing some tools that we hope will be very helpful in these kinds of future information conflicts. One specific area in the last year where we've had some good progress, last couple of years, has been focusing on the impact on we've been working with law enforcement who've been worried about human trafficking, and they've been struggling to really see, if you think about where people advertise for the sex trade, for example, a lot of that is open advertising, but right now our law enforcement partners, we found, really are sort of searching that space single-threaded, one Google search at a time, if you like, a very arduous way to figure out the patterns and the connectivity of the kinds of ads that are being served up. So what we developed in that case was a set of tools that allow for very deep, domain-specific, deep web search, not just the surface web that's indexed by Google or Bing, but really an ability to go deep into the open web and find all the linkages among ads, for example, for human trafficking that are related to human trafficking. What we find is that it dramatically enhances our law enforcement partners' ability to find those linkages, and that tool is now being used, for example, by the district attorney's office in New York, and has led to a number of indictments and even at least one conviction. So I think that gives you a little bit of a sense of the power of the kinds of tools when you apply these big data approaches to these areas like law enforcement. You can see, I think, how that would extend into the information warfare domain that sadly I think is going to become integral to conflicts going forward.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for citing about human trafficking. I'm very grateful. My home state of South Carolina, by state legislation and prosecution, has been one of the leading states to address what is just horrific.